Hello.
Are we live now?
We are.
All right. Hey, you guys. Let me make sure I have it shared on my page. I'm trying to make sure that it's.
I already
Oh,
shared it to
wait.
mine.
I didn't share. I shared. You put up some promo that I shared as opposed to the actual show.
No, I also shared mine. I shared it on mine as well. The actual show.
Yeah, I know, but that's not what I just pulled over to my page. Hold on a second.
Yeah,
I didn't realize you put up some promo for it.
I did the wrong one. That's why I added the other one.
I'm not seeing a live show. All I'm seeing is get a reminder. Sorry, you guys. Hold on a second.
Wait, this is my actor page. Yeah. I'm not. It won't let me share it to my own personal page.
You guys, sorry. Hold on a second.
What is going on here?
I'm on a live. Share via more options. Share to a community. I don't want to share. I'm trying to share it to my actual page.
Yeah, it won't let me share to my actual page either. The only thing that I can do is share the promotion that you tagged me in. And then
No,
I'll
but
have
we
to
want
go.
the show, man. Oh, it's
No.
because I'm not in the. I'm not in my. You have to switch down the bottom left. You have to switch out of the Stormcrow profile. It automatically throws you in the Stormcrow profile.
Okay.
You have to switch it to your actual personal profile.
Okay.
All right. There you go. Nice and live. Hey, you guys. You are watching Stormcrow, Dreamers Talking to Dreamers, episode 53. That, of course, is Mark Potter, who is brightly lit right now with his hair slicked back. He does all our tech, my co-host. Then you have Lola, who is our official mascot.
Hi, Lola.
And then my name is JD Glasscock. We have a great episode today, and kind of in tribute to me writing my first novel, which is Lit RPG. For the first time, our show is going to have. We have had fantasy authors. We had Brian Durfee, and we had Faith Hunter a couple times, but we've never had lit RPG authors. So we're very excited to remedy that today. Who would you like? Did you put the links up to their books?
Yes, everybody can find them in the chat before the show. But
Okay.
everything, all the
and he'll put them up again in during the break. Who would you like to bring in first?
Let's go ahead and bring in Kit Falbo.
All right, you guys. Amazing author, has like a multitude of books up on Amazon. Let's bring in Kit Falbo.
Hi.
Hey, brother. Let's grab John real quick. John is another veteran writer. Has again a multitude of books up on Amazon. Let's bring in John Cressman.
How you doing?
Good. It's very much an honor to have both of you here. Regardless of, I've been writing a long time, just not novels, but I've always had a deep respect for authors. It's why, even though this show is a little more oriented towards film, we've brought authors in the past just because I have chewed through books since I was like 5. You know what I mean? So it has always been a deep passion of mine. Anything having to do, whether it be D&D or fantasy novels, Piers Anthony, Eddings, all that stuff, that pretty much landscaped my life. You know what I mean? So it's a great honor to have both of you here. And for you guys, I'm going to ask each one of you your personal definition before we start going into the rest. For viewers that maybe not, like Mark earlier, that may not understand what lit RPG is, because I have found that a lot. when talking to the normal people I talk to, and I've been mentioning lit RPG. Most of them kind of look at me blankly and not actually understanding what it is. Even though, let me preface this, you guys, this is probably or if not one of the fastest growing genres in books. And I think last month or the month before, the top 3 most pre-ordered books on Amazon were all lit RPG. So we'll start with John, and then we'll go to Kit, and then we'll go into what I referenced earlier as far as projects.
So you want a definition of lit RPG?
Yeah, keep it tight and succinct, and then we'll have Kit do the same thing.
Sure. I would say it's the marrying of traditional fantasy with gaming concepts. So if you think about Tolkien, if you're reading a scene about Legolas shooting a bow, immediately it would be followed by, Legolas damages orc with arrow for 16 points of damage. And you'd get a running total of Legolas's stats and, his health bar, that sort of thing.
I still think Gimli won personally, but But now to you, Kit, what would be your description?
Any piece of fiction where video games or role-playing games mechanics play a role in the plot or world building. I mean, there are some of my.
Wait, hold on, Kit. You froze there for a second. So repeat what you just said. Well, yeah, I got to the part where mechanics, then you froze for a second.
It's where the mechanics are related to the plot in science fiction or fantasy books.
Hopefully that doesn't happen a lot. You froze again, but that's fine. We'll work around it. It's not the first time it's ever happened. It happens anytime you're doing live broadcast talk shows with people in different parts of the world over internet. So,
yeah.
But it's not that bad. You just cut out for a second or something. Now, the one thing I've noticed, though, in the genre is some of it gets grouped with stuff that doesn't really, it's kind of different. Like I've seen quite a few almost pure cultivation stories get dropped into lit RPG, and I don't know if they're, to me, they're very different. Now, there's a lot of books that have both.
Yeah.
And I get that, but there are some books where it's like it was called lit RPG, and then I started reading it, and it was literally pure cultivation, and I was a little perplexed at why it was being dropped into.
That's an issue.
So it's not just me that it has been an issue for a while, or something.
It's been an issue for a while for people trying to, because there's a lot of crossover in the fan bases, and they're just trying to get the views and the clicks and.
Oh, so you're saying they're purposely misnomering their thing to try to hit that genre base, that fan base, or whatever.
Yeah.
Or they purposely include very light lit RPG elements, so it can be classified as a lit RPG, which then allows them to advertise in the lit RPG groups along with the cultivation groups.
Well, it's like the 10 Realms. Like that does have a couple lit RPG things in it, but I started reading it, and I got through about 3 books, I think. Very well written, and the author, I've talked to him several times on Insta. Very, very cool guy. But that book is almost like 98% like cultivation. I mean, it's literally there's very little lit RPG to it, except in reference to characters other than the MC and MC's Rugrat and whatever, and only in really light references. But it was a well-written book, but I had gotten it thinking I was reading lit RPG, and I realized that it was literally almost all cultivation. And I like books that have both, and I like straight lit RPG. But I'm more of a D&D nerd, so it's...
You like the stats.
Yeah, I like the stats, the leveling classes. Like I thought Defiance does it well of mixing it. I think there's quite a few that I think mix it really well. But when I don't see any classes, I get a little That's just my personal thing. I know there's big genre lovers of both. And some of my favorite books have both in it. But anyway, let's move on. We'll start with Kit this time. Kit, what is a project of yours you've done in the last 2 years that you were very excited about, you thought turned out great, and you're very passionate about?
I did the sequel to my premiere book, The Crafting of Chess. The sequel is called The Rise of Chess. I like how it turned out. I actually like it better than the first book, even though I know that some fans were disappointed with the direction I went to. But you kind of have this.
There's always
when
going
you're
to be
doing
that,
a sequel. When you're
whether
doing
it
a
be
sequel,
film
you
or
know,
books, there's always going to be people you're not going to make happy. That's just the reality of humanity.
Yeah. Don't like that. You're going to disappoint everybody all the time. It's fine.
Yeah, you just have to take it. I think, and then obviously, being a second book, you're probably learned a lot in the first book. So, as far as your writing skill, your characters, your keeping things tighter and stuff like that. Kate, you're freezing a little bit. You want to?
Yeah. I mean, that's the big project from the last 2 years. I haven't really done anything.
So what's give us the theme of that series so that people at home get a gist of it.
The theme of the series it really is a coming of age. It begins with a teenage chess hustler, and he wants to basically step up and provide for his grandfather who's taking care of him. And the route that he sees is playing a virtual reality video game and using that to make an income.
But you reference chess, yes, like the game chess.
Yes.
So he's one of the kids that goes to the park and acts like the chess parks that acts like he doesn't know what he's doing and gambles and hustles
people. Yes.
Yeah.
Like a pool hustler, but a chess hustler. Yes, he's one of those.
Yeah. No, I know it exists. I know there are parks where people go and play chess and stuff like that, and gambling. That's very cool. And then he tries to use I'm assuming the mathematic state of mind that most really good chess players have, equations, math, stuff along those lines, and takes it to a video game format, thinking it'll translate.
More less math and more just research and grinding, like literal hustle of day in, day out, getting it just right.
Yeah, because I'm assuming a chess hustler has a combination between being able to see strategy and equations and being a salesman, con artist, and like a poker player would be, like ability to.
Yeah, that's how the first book is, but he's trying to avoid a little bit less of the con artist. And when I go to the second book, he's kind of like disillusioned with a lot of things.
As anyone in life gets disillusioned. As you get older, I realize it's a constant war of staying out of disillusioned on things.
And that one is a trying to connect with his peers style book as a continuation of the coming of age.
You mean like the friends he's made?
Yeah, the power of friendship. That cheesy, it's the power of friendship, but it's true. I mean, people make friends and they make connections and they want to do things for them. And that's kind of the second book.
Humans are tribal by nature, so.
Yeah. And that's the third book I'm going to try to bring things together. Is the friendship,
well, we can hit that. We're going to get. I'm assuming that's going to be your current project, so we'll get to that and delve deeper into it.
I do bubble projects, which means taking a break between before I do the second and third book. Before I do the final book of the chess series, I like to do one in between to refresh my brain some.
Yeah, I know Jazz. I can't ever say his name. Cahill, the one that does the Darker Rise and all that stuff. I know that's how he has like 3 different series, because he would do one and then go do another one in between, and then
I just can't focus on.
You got your 2 books out though before you started bridging, or after book 1 of the first series you started trying to make other series?
after book 1 of the first series, I released a heist novella, a lit RPG heist novella that's a space opera about somebody trying to collect collectible card games in a video game, and he has to steal the last one to complete his collection.
You just through Star Wars and space opera always makes you think of Star Wars.
Yeah.
So,
Very much Star Wars inspired.
Mark is trying to show you his insane collection. You got to understand, there's a reason I say my in the promos my lightsaber savant co-host, Mark Potter.
That main character, and he has an ex-girlfriend. He involves one of those video game players that like that. Is that better?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, one of those video game players who likes to change their outfits a lot. So I had some fun putting her in different kinds of outfits in almost every scene. So
very cool.
Some people like to do that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I find myself tending to stick in the same, like time is almost unmoving. Throw him in armor, leave it.
But I'm going to bed. Don't care.
Hey, there's a what I always say, man. There's 1,000 roads to Damascus, man. Whatever fits your vision and gets you there is beautiful in and of itself. All right, so John, let me tell me about something in the last couple of years you were excited and amped about that you thought turned out great.
I would say probably the Veil Online series that came out almost 2 years exactly next month. So the
very
first
cool.
book. So that was kind of my first attempt at lit RPG. So
and you had written books before that, though, yes?
I had, but they were all nonfiction about hypnosis.
Ah, very cool. So you learned the ability to put a bunch of people with the ability to buy books under hypnosis and then put a book out.
If only it worked that way.
You could do live video where you like the little chime. Watch the.
No, he uses a special type of ink.
Yeah.
Yeah,
now we're getting into lit RPG.
Yeah, all the words tend to swirl together, and you look at the center, and next thing you know, I have your pen number. So you know.
And then I'm like, am I looking at Waldo? Is that what I'm looking at?
Right. Yeah, but that was my first lit RPG books. Really enjoyed it. I read it for a while, and I come from a D&D background. You know, old school.
Chainmail.
The gold. Well, not that old school. I came in at first edition D&D.
Okay.
But then the gold box games in the 80s.
Yeah, Pool of Radiance. You mean?
Yep.
Like
Pool of Radiance. Then Eye of the Beholder, things like that.
Yeah.
And, through EverQuest, the first, what I could really consider like one of the very first MMORPGs that really captured the spirit.
Well, and the cool thing about that was that you could do the dual classing. Was that EverQuest 1? I think that was EverQuest 1. Or is that 2?
No. EverQuest 2 and EverQuest 1, you had one class.
What am I thinking of? Guild Wars 1.
Oh, Guild Wars? I never got into Guild Wars, but...
Yeah, I think Guild Wars 1 was where you could do the dual classing.
I think there was in one of EverQuest or EverQuest 2, you were a certain class and to a certain point, and then you chose like a
specialization.
I think I played it though. Isn't there one that was like a anti-paladin could do
Shadow Knight?
Shadow Knight.
Do like dark heals and stuff like that.
I played EQ one with my dad and my family. So that was 98. And that's just after Pokemon had come out, and I was playing EverQuest 1, and EverQuest 2 came out, and people still play EQ2.
Yep. Still play EQ1. There's a Project 1999 out there where you can play it for free.
I don't know. I've tried to go back, and I love those games when they came out. I've tried to go back and play older games,
It's
and I
really
just
tough.
can't do it, man. The graphics are so outdated. I just can't. I play it for like an hour or two, and then I'm like, I can't do it. I just
You would play EQ2. The graphics is still there.
No, I did. I tried EQ2. I think like a year ago, and I hadn't done it since way back when it was big. And I was just like, same thing when I 6 months ago I went and tried to play Lord of the Rings online, and I'm like, oh my god, these graphics, I can't do it.
Yeah, those are. It's amazing what we get used to, right? You know,
Yeah, because those
graphic
games were
quality-
amazing when they came out. I remember my computer at the time had trouble playing them because they were so like advanced.
I still remember sneaking through Guck, if you remember that. And you know you lose your stealth, and the next thing you know, you've got a whole train of froglocks, you know, chasing you. And you know, the key was you had to get to a certain point, and so you could die there.
Hey, I tried classic World of Warcraft like about 9 months ago, and I forgot how much actual running you had to do from quest to quest. I was like, I cannot do this. I'm like literally for 15 minutes real world time just running
I mean, hey, that's D&D
to the
custom
next
right there.
like area. I'm like, oh my lordy, man, I cannot. Where's the automobile, man? Where's the teleport? Man, I need to.
Where are the mounts?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Then I forgot that like in World of Warcraft, the mounts didn't come until way, way high level, man. I'm like, oh my lordy! Like,
Well, people were complaining that exactly what you just said, and then
well, yeah, in the new WoW, I think they fixed all that. But I mean,
and then they said, oh, there's a cash cow.
yeah, sell mounts. Yeah, that's awesome, man. What is the thematic of your book, though, John? The one we're referencing.
The Veil Online?
Yeah.
In a nutshell, futuristic VR MMORPG and the technology to transfer people's consciousness into the game when they die. So they learn to back up people's memory.
Yeah, I've seen a few lit RPGs play with that concept.
Yeah. And there's a programmer working for
I think Eden Online does that as well.
Yeah, there's a few of them. And the concept was actually brought into the movies by, I think was it a Netflix series?
Altered Carbon.
Yeah, Altered Carbon. Was that Netflix?
Where they have the synapses inside their neck.
Yep. Yeah. So
Mark, is that where you like played like an axe wielding maniac in like in a little butterfly dress?
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Yeah, I could have sworn that was that one, man. And I was behind him with my little baton.
Yeah, but that's the thing is like you can only see that for a split second. It's gone.
Yeah, it's called background acting, man. I did it for like 8 years. You're like the little blip that goes behind the actor. But okay, so that's awesome. I'm gonna check out both. I'm like piled up right now, but I finished my book one, so I'm gonna as soon as I'm finally reading that Rand Diddley Ghost Town or whatever. But as soon as I finish that one, I'll jump over to your guys's. And then right before that, I finished Necrotic Apocalypse, which I thought was funny. I don't know if you read it, but it's like a necromancer zombie that starts the apocalypse system, all that lit RPG, but then like he's a complete idiot. So it was funny.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, it was funny. His name's like Digby Graves. Dig Graves, and he's a zombie necromancer. It's pretty funny. But anyway, so let's jump over to Kit. Kit, what is a current project you are working on that you're excited about, that you're drilling through?
I'm 60,000 words into a fantasy lit RPG. where it follows a maid necromancer and her goal to get an undead pet and hijinks around that.
You know what? I'm in love with pets. My book has a pet, but please don't do what some authors done. That I've seen in several. I won't mention any names, but where they have the MC have a pet and then they constantly forget about the pet.
Oh no!
Like they go through massive battles and you're like the pet is rarely mentioned and you're like, dude, what is the point of the MC having a pet if you actually forget to utilize the pet?
He didn't summon him.
She has a familiar who does play a role, but she wants an additional pet for reasons as a way she sees an out from her job as a maid. And there's like some pet battle competitions, and she's thinking that she has a big plan to get a very fancy pet and use that for some pet battles and make some money and leave being a maid behind.
Very cool. That's an interesting concept. You said necromancy, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So necromancy, maid, familiar, pet. So you have a necromancer that's a maid that wants to stop being a maid, that has a familiar and looking for a pet. I'm assuming that the pet is crucial to her getting out of the maid business.
That is the plan. An opportunity arises.
That's original, though, man. That's literally plus you're playing into that what's that Asian concept of the whole maid thing? There's like a name for it of like
that kind of trope. A prince dies and he's being laid to rest, and his pet is with him, like a big fancy like a coddle, like those feathery dragons, almost Aztec.
Wingless dragon.
And it's gonna be, and so she gets a plan to.
That would be a hell of a pet, though, because that's like literally a dragon as a pet, dude. So
a winged serpent.
A winged serpent. She has a scroll to do that with, and she,
that's a pretty beefy pet coming out of the gates, dude. Coatl is like, at least in what is that, Mayan?
Yeah, I believe so, or Aztec. That could be.
Yeah, Mayan. It's South American. I know that, but and then although Asians have like I don't forget what they call it, but their dragons are somewhat similar, wingless, very sinewy.
Are you talking about the fluid?
Chinese dragons are along those lines. Also, the wing usually depicted with no wings and more serpent-like, long and. Kit.
Yeah, we lost Kit.
That's right. He'll come back. I think it's because he's outside, man. I don't know why he's outside, but I think it's wherever his internet connection that he's trying to hit to. He's outside. He's too far away from his internet connection, which is why
probably.
Bouncing, like stuttering and stuff like that.
No, I mean, what he was saying was,
if I like my internet box is in the my closet in my room. If I go even out my front door, my internet starts dropping. And I pay for like the super. I'm a gamer, so I pay for the super fast, higher end stuff. But that Wi-Fi still, man, you're.
No, I mean what he
I'm sure he'll jump
went in on was like, someone who just like stumbled upon like the Book of the Dead, the book of like necromancy, and you're like, huh, okay, so that that makes sense. You pick up this book one day and it's like dark as shit, and you're looking at it. And then you see like there about like a ritual rite on how to summon the dead. You're like, okay, yeah, I can see that.
Did he jump back in yet? I'm trying to message him on Facebook.
No, I have not. I don't see him yet.
That's all right. We're going to talk to John here in a second, and then we were going on break anyway, so that should give him enough time. But again, I'm pretty sure it's because he was outside, because his literal internet connection was bad from the get go. But anyway, you guys will do our best to get Kit back in. by the end of the break, which we'll be doing here soon. But while we're here, John, what is a current project you are working on?
So I'm currently writing book 3 of the Assassin's Wrath series, as well as book 3 of the Cuesta Online series, and book 2 of currently untitled series.
I feel you.
So three different books at once, which is
Wow.
a new challenge for me. It's interesting so far, and I just started this within the last 2 weeks. So.
Oh, there you are, Kit. I was just messaging on. I'm sorry for 1 second, John. I thought I was messaging you on Facebook, and I didn't realize that Phoenix Gray from BitRPG had messaged me. So instead of messaging you, I'm messaging her saying, "Re-click link. We're waiting for you." And she was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" I'm like,
free promotion.
My laptop had a blue screen of.
Oh, it crashed.
It completely crashed. It just restarted. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that sometimes when I'm I'm downloading a torrent. It'll do that. I don't know why, but where's your internet connection, Kit? Because it seems that probably is the reason you're having issues. You're obviously on Wi-Fi, I'm assuming.
Yeah. It's on Wi-Fi. Just I'm sitting outside right now. It's not too far.
Whatever the connection is, it's kind of intermittent, hence why you're getting frozen and stuff like that.
Okay.
But your vocal has stayed pretty good, which is the most important part. Your visual gets frozen a little bit, but your audio is usually going fine. So now let me restart, John, because that was a little distracting while you're trying to talk to me. I'm trying to get a guest back into the show. Restart with the project you are currently working on and the thematic involved.
So so I am currently writing 3 books at one time. The third book of Assassin's Wrath, the third book of Cuesta Online, and the second book in a unannounced series.
How do you keep all that straight, man, when you got like 3 different threads and characters? And
I don't know, to be perfectly honest. So I've written 2 books at one time before. That's what I did previously.
I can't even read 2 books at once because I literally I start intermixing story.
So it does help. I will tell you, it does help if you go back and you reread the chapter in the book that you're about to write in. You reread the last chapter. It gives you a chance to kind of re-edit it too, and then that kind of gets you back in the mindset, and then you can continue on with the story.
Oh, kind of like a recap for a TV show.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I found really hard, because obviously my background is more in the last decade film, and you're always writing in the action sequences. You're always writing in third person because the only people that are going to be reading that are like actors. You know what I mean? Like people at home, all they're going to be actually hearing is dialogue. Right. You know what I mean? So the book I'm writing now is in first person, and I kept, every time I went back and the chapter I would just write, like half of what should have been I, me, or whatever was he. And I'm like, I had to keep like changing it all, like, and going fixing it all. And I'm like, because you get in that zone of writing.
Oh yeah.
And then you forget my natural thing is to write in third person. And so I was like constantly, with the chapter before I got into the zone would be like, I, me, blah, blah. And then halfway through it was like all third person. I'm like, oh my lordy, dude.
I wrote 11 books in a row in third person, and then I tried this new series that I'm working on in first person. I got 8 chapters before I'm like, I can't do this. Like my brain, I've spent so much time writing in third person. I can't do it.
And were you constantly finding yourself having to go back and fix it because you automatically started writing in third person?
Yep. And it's like no. And then of course then I had to go back and rewrite everything in third person, and then now
which is completely different. I mean, it's
Yeah,
because it's not just about it's about the tense of words. It's about the
Yep.
It's not even just the I's, the me's, the he, she, whatever. Because you also put nouns differently. You put everything differently when you're talking from a first to a third person point of view. And I hear your pain, man. I literally feel your pain. So third person. The only thing about first person though is it literally allows you to be a little more intimate with the character and the thoughts. Like I told you, all of my writing throughout my career has been third person, so I'm right there with you. I just felt like first person would allow you to be a little more inside the skin as opposed to a camera sitting over their shoulder. You know what I mean?
I agree with you, and that's why I wanted to try it. But I write my books in third person limited, so you are always in the person.
Yeah, you're third person limited omniscient. You're still in that their head, but you're like true third person omniscient is like a camera above.
Yes.
The top looking down and seeing everybody equally. And then you have third person limited omniscient, which is that camera like right over one person's shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally
like a playing a game.
Yeah.
So you
playing
see what
game.
They see. What
they see. You know what they know. Which is sometimes not the truth.
But the big difference between that and first person though is third person limited omniscient. It can slide over easier to other people's perspectives than first person.
Well, I was keeping mine all in third person limited until I would do like an epilogue, and then it would be a completely different person, but only them.
Yeah, I had trouble when I was doing only one chapter in book one. I finally go over to the brother's point of view for one chapter because he was by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was struggling. At first, I was going to try to do his in first person, but then I thought that'd be way too confusing. So then I did his in third person, and I'm like, oh, I'm home again. I'm writing in third person. But anyway, so let's pick one of those 3 books to give a theme about. How about the assassin one?
So this is book 3, and in this world, which is actually a different part of the abduction cycles world. This is the.
So they're integrated in the same universe.
They're in the same universe, same planet. They're just on different parts of the continent. And in this part of the continent,
like a Nora Online and a Nora Unleashed, kind of.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah.
So on this side of the continent, you have the wizards who are, have enormous power, who basically have set themselves up as gods, right? And I never quite explained like how they know the same pantheons as Earth, but there's a certain carryover because people from Earth are being brought over to this planet and dropped off, abducted. So in the third book, he's actually going to go up against Zeus and a lot of the Greek pantheon.
So you're actually using real pantheons. That was another thing that I was always curious about when you're doing these kind of books, is whether you want to create everything yourself or use things that are already existing. You know what I mean? Like,
So I use something existing, but I did it for a very specific reason, and it is because of the And I guess I can reveal a little bit, right? So there is if you think of the movie Interstellar, where there's a black hole and there's 2 suns that orbit the gargantuan, a similar setup. They have 2 suns and a black hole, and the black hole is actually ripped a hole. It's a supermassive black hole. It's actually ripped a hole into the multiverse. So you're actually getting people and physics coming from other universes mixing in this one solar system where gargantuan is located. So I just say gargantuan, that's not its real name. And there are, and again, spoilers, everyone, spoilers. There are aliens who are watching the phenomena, who are intercepting the people who are being pulled through these rifts that open up and suck people in from various universes, and they're to give them a little a little bit of advantage on this new world, they embed them with this organic computer in their head, and that's how the game physics appear to them. People who are born on the planet
kind of like what
it.
they did in the land with the chaos seeds, where they put him in that way. I think
That's
he flashes
pretty good
back to it way later in the book, in the series, but where he was in the table and he saw the other people on the table and they were fixing him. And
yeah, I guess, yeah, and a bit like that. There's a few different concepts that I drew from for this book. Some books that I read. There's a little bit of Stargate in there. There's a little bit of a lot of different things. But that's what we do as authors, right?
you do. You
take part in
film. My biggest
Frankenstein
inspirations are Tarantino and Rodriguez and Terry Gilliam, and you tend to take
Film same way.
You liberally pay tribute to a whole bunch of other people.
Yeah,
we really
nothing
do.
wrong with it, man.
And if you think
Because
about
then you
it,
take all those different aspects.
That's what William
and you
Shakespeare
make,
did.
You know what I mean? Yeah, that's awesome. That series is very much it is not a. It is in the vein of like Defiance and what's the other one? He Who Fights with Monsters, where you have vast universes interconnected as opposed to staying in one world or staying on one planet. Well, I don't know if there's a terminology for that in this genre of go ahead.
He is on one planet. But aspects.
But you're
of
holding the concepts of universal. Yeah. There's other things going in.
Yeah, other influences from multiple universes, including a demonic universe, which is trying to get a further foothold, which is.
Hey, just tell them to send over the sexy succubi and leave the rest. That's or incubi, whatever personally floats your flavor, man. But
incubus and succubus.
Well, hey, if someone's into guys, they can have an incubi, man. I don't really care, but it's when you start getting into Balors and shit like that. I'd rather maybe you keep those boys back in the dimension. Certainly, I just read the only series I read that was a harem series was about that, where the guy's a demon or harem style, was a demon summoner or whatever. I forget the name of that series.
That's big.
World system or something like that. I'm not really too much into the whole harem thing, but that was interesting, and it was a lot less descriptive and more about emotions and characters and stuff like that. But that's cool, man.
That's a great idea.
Harem?
When we end the show, tell me which of your series that you want me to tackle, and I'm going to start tackling those next, because you guys have multiple series. So give me, I can't promise to read all of them. Give me one of them, and I'll tackle through it. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a 5-minute break, you guys, and then we're going to come back. Just remember, don't disconnect. Stay active. He'll put up your links again to your books during the break. And then we'll come back and we'll finish up on future projects, and then shoot the shit a little bit, maybe just about the genre in itself. And again, as I said in the beginning, and those people that are just watching, this is literally one of the fastest growing genres in literature currently. If you saw where it went from 2015 to now, it is exponentially blown up and insane. In fact, some of the authors that people are trying to emulate, they don't understand, like even on Royal Road, they don't understand the difference between if you had started on Royal Road in 2018 compared to now, where there was like a tenth of the amount of competition that there is now back then. So, because a lot of these people are trying to emulate people that started when there was like 10% of the amount of authors that existed. So it was much easier to stand out, or...
Well, not only that, but the genre has evolved, right? So if you try to emulate say, something that you read at the beginning of the lit RPG getting rolling, and you plan to emulate that style may not be what the current
I don't
reader
know.
base is looking
Aileron I
for.
still like, even though he's got a lot of controversy and crap around him. Take all the controversy shit and throw it out the window, and just his books. There's a reason he was that popular. I love his books, and it's a great series. And probably my favorite of his, though, is the last book he did, which was the first book in a series about being an actual god and like starting a new pantheon against other gods. And I thought the concept of actually that's your starting point and acting like there's a level 1 god, newbie god.
Yeah, I'm a newbie god.
Yeah, but that's what it was, and I that was probably my favorite book out of his whole things, just because of the concept. The concept was so original. I'm like, you're starting off as a level 1 god, though you're still a god. So I thought it was interesting.
And that's the key, right? Is you've got the framework, the lit RPG framework, and it's coming up with a new and novel concept.
Twist
right?
on it, yeah.
To kind of, entice readers.
But at the same time, you also want to keep enough tropes in it.
Yes.
That they can relate. You know what I mean? Like, because I read an article the other day. It wasn't even on lit RPG. It was just about writing, and it was like, there's a reason tropes are successful. So it's good to innovate, but at the same time, you want some of those tropes so that people can relate to whatever you're trying to do.
Yep. Look at romance. You've got the same tropes and the same basic plot in almost every romance
One
novel.
of those, Danielle Steele.
My mom loves romance novels.
Oh my god, dude! My mom gave me so much shit for showing boobs in some of my short films, and then I walked in on her and my brother-in-law's mother, eyes glued to the TV, watching what is that?
50 Shades of Grey.
50 Shades of Grey, and I walked into a scene that was straight up porn, man. I'm like, how the
a BDSM room?
I've listened to from you, Mom, like about throwing a boob in like a short film, and I walk in on you watching like soft porn, and she's like, "But it's so good." I'm like, "So good."
So what are you saying? What are you saying, Mom? What are you saying about my stuff?
No, I'm like, okay, so just throw it in a Danielle Steele kind of like badly written, overdramatic soap opera way, and porn is good. Is that what you're trying to tell me? No, but anyway, you guys, we're going to be back in 5 minutes. I can tell with all of us that we could probably just keep chit chatting. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Then we're going to go over with both of these amazing authors on future projects and what the big goals are coming in the next couple of years. So we'll be back in 5. You've been watching Stormcrow. Dreamers talking to dreamers. As always, dream big and put the sweat in. you guys. This is Lola. Lola is our official mascot.
Hello, Lola.
Yeah, she's an older lady, like 12, 11 or 12 or something like that. You know what I was going to ask before we jump into the future projects is another thing I've noticed with certain books, and I've even in my own, I've caught myself doing it, where you forget to put information in that should be in there. Have you guys ever done that? Where you know it in your head, but that it is something that the audience, it should be explained to the audience or the readers, and you space ever elaborating on it?
You know, it's one of those things where it's hard to know if I did it or not. I think sometimes I'm sure I've done it or I found myself doing it. Usually my editor catches it if something is very unclear.
Yeah, it's an editor and beta reader get to take a look at it and let you know if they need that information.
Yeah, I had to skip both of those on this first book, man. I'm on a timeline. We have a game coming out on Steam, and we needed the book to come up.
Yeah.
And my finances are somewhat tied in a lot of different directions. You know what I noticed though is I spent 13 hours editing yesterday, and I spent almost my entire time, because I was lazy on the first walkthrough, capitalizing mom and brother over and over again, because on my first walkthrough I didn't, because I was just writing and didn't even pay attention, and that was like probably 90%. And the story is two brothers and a mom, and I'm like, literally 90% of my editing time was spent capitalizing mom and brother. I was like, holy shit, dude. But anyway, and it's another thing about pets. I was reading Ren Diddley, that ghost I was telling you about, that I'm on book 2 now, and he had 2 pets, and he literally forgets about them all the time. Like, literally, he comes back from a big journey, he's gone for a long time. He just got the pets like a few chapters earlier. He comes back from this long away, like 4 days or something like that away, and it doesn't even mention the pets, dude, like that he left back in the village that they're from. And I'm just like, man, absolutely errant, dude. Like, seriously.
Yeah, that's an issue, you know. No, should you really get a pet if you're not going to take care of it?
Yeah, and he even has some unique, weird ones, like a living thorn that runs around. But anyway, so let's go into this. So, Kit, what in the next 2 years, what is a main goal of yours or a main book of yours that you want to do, that you're excited about? It's been churning in your brain.
Well, I mean, once I complete the Maid novel, I want to finish the Crafting of Chess series, like finish it as a trilogy, like do the final book and just be done with it and move on to other projects. And you know, it's always good to have something complete, you know.
And that's another thing. Did you go into it knowing it was a trilogy, or is it more as you were writing it, you realized the story would be best served by it being a trilogy?
I left it kind of open. I had the idea that it could be a trilogy, but also that the first book could be kind of standalone. And a lot of people like to think of the first book more as standalone, which is one reason why the sequel kind of got some mixed reviews. But I always had the idea that I could do a trilogy, and if I really wanted, there's a book on a side character I could write that takes place at the same chronological time as the second and third book, in which if I really wanted to, I could write that and have the same scenes but from a different perspective.
Yeah, which Kraut has done with some of his friends on the Completionist Chronicles. You had that one, the Bibliomancer, that it was like happening around the same time as the main.
Yeah, that's always a fun thing to do.
Yeah, especially when he's had help from other writers, so that probably makes it easier if your world gets big enough that. Because I think Tao, I haven't read Tao, but I think he did is that his name? Did the same thing with the Apocalypse Online. Yeah, he had other writers writing within the world or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's very, very cool. Well, I hope that you're able to, and I'm sure you will, drill that out. As long as I guess you can not create so many other series that you're lost in a myriad of maze of which book you want to actually write on.
Hey, I'm right here.
Hey, I was just talking to Jez. I still can't say his last name. Kaiho, or Caijo, I think. And he's the same thing. He has so many series going on that like one of them hasn't been touched in quite a while, and it's a series. So literally, he hasn't. It's like book 3 there's definitely a series, and he hasn't gone back to that series because he has 2 other series that he's working on. So I can imagine that gets a little convoluted trying to juggle. I guess you could base it on sales and whichever one's selling the most to do.
That gets the most attention, yeah.
But I would be hard pressed. Huh?
What's that?
You can pick so they just stop reading you if you don't finish them.
Yeah, that would. Even if my book wasn't selling, I would still feel the responsibility to tie up the series for the simple fact for the people that do like it. Because otherwise, you're going to be like a George R. Martin or a Rothfuss, who literally has like sheer venom being thrown their way because they literally started a series and then never finished. I mean, Rothfuss with Name of the Wind, it was like 7 years or 6 years between book 1 and book 2, and now it's been like a decade since book 2, and he still hasn't written book 3.
He's made enough money on them that he can live okay, though.
Well, the problem with both of those guys was the same. They got so lost in the fame and success. Like George R. R. Martin has gone on, and multiple people have said, as soon as the Game of Thrones became a TV series, he basically stopped writing because he wanted to be on set of the TV show every day they shot. He was going to every Hollywood red carpet he could get his hands on and was just basking in the love of success in Hollywood. And literally the last season, they tried to make him write the last book by banning him from the set. And he wasn't allowed to go to the set anymore. And it still didn't work. And then the same thing with Rothfuss. He was literally, as he was not writing, he was at every convention that existed, basking in the adulation of, and they're both brilliant writers, man. But I was just like, holy hell, dude.
There's a musical called Something Rotten, and it's about 2 writers. It's about 2 playwrights at the same time as Shakespeare trying to come up with a hit, and it features lines from Shakespeare. One of his lines is, "I know writing made me famous, but being famous is just so much more fun." And that seems to me like to encapsulate George R. R. Martin. Like, writing made him famous, but now he's just enjoying being famous.
You got to understand, he started his entire career trying to work his way into TV, writing TV.
Yep.
So, and that failed miserably. So he then went on to start writing fantasy. I think his first stuff was the card superhero stuff, wild cards or whatever. And then he, obviously being heavily influenced by Jordan, because you could tell the Game of Thrones is heavily influenced by Robert Jordan. He went into that, and then all of a sudden here towards the end of his career, he gets all the things that he wanted that
Before
made
he
him
started
start
writing.
writing. You know what I mean?
You do make more money when you get your stuff optioned than you do for writing the books usually.
You're talking about for film and TV and stuff like that. Yeah. In actuality, Hollywood, because obviously I come from a film background, Hollywood purposely any day of the week would rather deal with a book author than a screenwriter for a myriad of reasons. One of the main ones is usually they can gain full control over it because the author does not know anything about film usually. And secondly, they can usually get them in a better active deal than they could with someone who's a film writer who actually is very usually well ensconced in knowledge of the industry, and then also a lot of screenwriters want to direct and they don't want to deal with that. So they literally chase down, like a lot of these Stage 32, Voyage Media, there's like whole entire companies that are all built around chasing down fiction authors that they hoping to find ones that would make good translations into film.
Well, if anybody wants to option my books, I'd take the extra money.
Yeah, Lit RPG is a tough one, though. I even have a feature film that I was thinking about possibly writing a Lit RPG about, but it's so hard to encompass the whole system thing. You know what I mean? Into a film. And I was trying to in my brain, trying to figure out how I would take this concept that is a film and move it into a Lit RPG. And I was like, I don't know if that translation just seems like a difficult challenge.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think a lot of people, I call them normies. I think a lot of normies might be confused by the Lit RPG element. Especially, you really have to present them in a very. I mean, if you even look at like the new Dungeons and Dragons movie, which the trailer,
yeah, which is made by the guys that did Thor, right?
Yeah. So, what's that?
That movie was made by a lot of the production team that did Thor, and you can see like Thor Ragnarok, and you can see it in the actual trailer, all the rock music, fast moving.
It looks great. I mean,
it does. I mean, and I like Thor Ragnarok. That's why they did it.
But if even in like that, you're talking Dungeons and Dragons, like the classic stat game,
and they don't level, right? In that game, in that movie. I mean, I didn't see anyone leveling. I
am assuming that they're bringing in the lore from Dungeons and Dragons, but completely, the classes, things like that, in a stereotypical way. But they're not. They're totally divorcing it from any type of stat or leveling or anything like that. So
because they're trying to make it like a Dungeons and Dragons version of Thor Ragnarok. A lot of rock and heavy metal music, a lot of action, a lot of fast movement all over the place.
The closest thing you have is the new Jumanji movies.
That's about as close. Or the even when they did Ready Player One, wasn't Ready Player One almost kind of along those lines of a lit RPG? Ish game lit.
Yeah,
I guess would be
it's more VR than I think real lit RPG, because he was never in a class. He was never a class. There were never any real.
And even though they reference leveling or getting more powerful, they don't ever show it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas like Jumanji, you're right about Jumanji. And in the back of my head I was kind of thinking that, but it just wasn't coming out. But yes, where he taps his chest, and you see the special abilities, but even those very rudimentary, they maybe access it they maybe reference it like once or twice, and some of it's just a gag, right? The cake, my weakness is cake, I don't see how that would
it's
translate.
hard because film is about beats and movement and kinetic energy. And if you were constantly stopping all of that to show screens and stats and all that kind of stuff, that works in a book. But when you're talking visual and stuff like that, it would probably stunt the kinetic energy you're building up. Because, the film is all about you're building energy.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, the only way I can see it working is if it's a very, very minor part, where maybe in the middle of a fight he just suddenly glows golden, and maybe can become you can see him get a little bit stronger or something like that.
Or if they did it along the lines of what was that one? Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Oh,
where they do the every time he meets a new one, they stop and you see all the words, and it's like ex-girlfriend number 5 or what? You know what I mean? If they made it more graphic, novel-y, and comic booky, and
Free Guy,
that was actually a great film, man. And literally, obviously, totally off of Grand Theft Auto. That's literally like Grand Theft Auto, an NPC in Grand Theft Auto.
What's that?
But the whole concept of the main person being an NPC,
that
literally. The Hollywood is finally understanding the vast built-in audience that has played video games, how huge video games are.
Oh, yeah.
And they're finally incorporating that. You know what I mean? Like into because I mean they've always had sci-fi and fantasy, but there was not from a Hollywood perspective. There was never any large respect for D&D or video games or any of those along those lines. And most of the films that were ever made based on any of that were like had no funding, were like horrible actors, no budgets, no, you know what I mean? Like remember the old D&D movies? I mean, those were like really.
Well, that's like Mortal Kombat too.
Same thing. Yeah. They just didn't have Hollywood. Just didn't have a lot of respect for that fan base. Would be a saying, and I think they're finally. Hollywood's one of those things that are like what you would say is slow learners. They're usually like several years behind the actual gap of like where the actual market is,
or a decade or more.
Yeah. But anyway, okay, so John, let's talk about real quick. What is the project you have in the next couple of years that you would like to get done?
I think it's going to take me 2 years to get through the 3 series that I'm working on. So,
I was expecting to hear in about the next second. So yeah, that is the problem with 3 series. I mean, I get the reasoning behind it to have versatility in your portfolio and to and hopefully bring fans that are a little bit different than the ones you have. And then hopefully they cross over into your other books.
Yeah, I'll go with that. ADD. I mean, I was going to go with multiple personality disorder, but what you say sounds better.
Now, are you still with us, Kit? Because your visual has been locked for about 4 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, it's fine because your video is locked into you staring straight forward like you're totally involved.
He's just really intent on the conversation.
Yeah, he's just staring, like non-moving for 3-4 minutes.
That's fine.
I just think it's your internet, man. Wherever you are, it's kind of intermittent. But your audio seems fine, which is really the only integral aspect.
Yeah.
So real quick, and then we're going to wrap this up. Kit, tell people how they can get a hold of you or support you or anything along those lines.
Well, all my books are on Amazon.
Under the same name, Kit Falbo?
Under Kit Falbo. I have a Patreon with a few supporters. I've been TikTok stuff recently, just for some fun, just to see how that goes. You know.
What did you say?
That.
TikTok.
He's been TikToking.
Yeah, people have been doing that. I don't know, man. Maybe it's my age. I have the whole idea of doing a 20-second video, 30-second video.
I think 15.
Yeah,
15.
I mean, it's
unless I broke out my sumo thong and my disco ball, I don't know what else I can do.
I don't know. You may get a lot of hits.
Can you get negative votes? That would probably give me negative votes.
Nah, you can use that. You know, you just put something up there. You know, it's another way to kind of advertise or to say silly things. You know, just cross media.
I got you. I mean, like I get it. I know it's popular, but I wouldn't really know what to do. Maybe I could just take video of Mark doing acrobatic flips with his lightsaber.
Just take the best clips from your interviews and just put them up there. You don't need to do anything except take the clips that you like.
Well, there you go, Mark. There's a project right there, buddy.
I got a lot of projects already.
No, just go take clips of our 53 shows and put them up there.
I don't have a
all you
TikTok
need to
account. I'm not gonna create one.
As lazy as you want to be, take clips and just put it up there. Either you'll get views, or you'll get likes or comments, or you won't. And then it's just up in another space for people to see if they want.
That is true. You can't succeed unless you try, man.
Yeah.
And then I can ruin it all with sumo thongs and disco balls.
Yeah, but that's okay too.
All right, John. So, how can people support you? Get a hold of you?
I have all my books are up on Amazon under John Elijah Cressman. There is another John Cressman that happens to be my father who published his memoir. So it's John Elijah Cressman, or my website, johncressman.com.
You know, I found out that the title of my book, after the fact, after I almost done writing it, was used like 5-6 years ago by someone in a book that they never went anywhere. It was supposed to be a series, and they only wrote the one book.
Well, can't
And that was
copyright title.
Yeah, titles can't be
so
copyrighted.
then I had
So
to when I was doing it, and I went to and I registered with the WGA or whatever, and when I put it on Amazon, I had to make part of the title Grim Dark Lit RPG. I had to like put it in the title so that whoever that person is, if they came from the graveyard, couldn't give me shit.
well, you can't copyright titles.
No.
Unless they went out of the way to trademark it, and then it would
Yeah, but
only
that's
be
going to
valid.
start like recent conversations that I don't want to get into.
Yeah. Good,
Yeah,
good
the
point,
whole
good
lit
point.
RPG trademark thing. I'm like, oh my god, man! People went ballistic on that stuff, man. I'm just like, let it go. Who cares, man? Like, it's not really very. As the person was finding out, it's not very. It's only temporarily enforceable because the one person that got taken down on Amazon got right back up within like 3 days, something like that, 4 days. So, but anytime, what do they say? Anytime you put more than 2 people in a room, you got a daytime soap.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that seems to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, believe me, I worked in restaurants most of my life. Besides the 8 years I was in LA and worked in film, but and those things were like walking as the world turns. But such is existence. So we're going to end it out here. I'm going to have each one of you guys give advice to upcoming authors on paths to success, or at least your advice on what are the best things they can do for themselves. We'll start with Kit.
I feel that the best thing, if you want to succeed, is to kind of diversify, to be aware of what tools are out there, and then you want to diversify, but in a way that you're enjoying what you're doing. Because if you're a writer, it's one of those jobs which you're probably not going to make a lot of money unless you're very lucky. So make sure everything you do is something that you enjoy doing.
So you're not writing a genre that you absolutely hate because you think it's going to make money.
Exactly. You don't want to do that.
Yeah, believe me, I see it all the time in film, man. Like people I know that literally, instead of writing the film they want, they're chasing coattails. They're like, oh, I'm going to write about like when bullying was happening. I'm going to write a bullying one because that's super popular right now. And I'm like, holy hell, dude, you're going to be wanting to shoot yourself in the head by the time you even get halfway through that, dude. Like, if that's not something you're passionate about, I just don't know if it ever works. If you're chasing art, you have to understand business and art, but there's a difference between that and chasing dollar signs, like twisting your art into chasing whatever you think is going to, like, unless they happen to coincide with what you love to do. I just think that you might even make money doing it that way, but I've always said, what's the point of money if you're not an actual happy person?
It's true.
You know what I mean? I've known a lot of people from when I was in music to film. I've known lots of people that have money, but they either did it shady ways or they did things the wrong ways, or and they're absolutely miserable sows, usually in bad relationships. And I'm like, and they're always miserable every time I've ever conversed with them. And I'm like, what is the point of money if you're just an unhappy sow the whole time, man? Like, because money ain't going to buy you. It's an old adage, but it's very true. Money is not going to buy you actual happiness. That's derived from pursuing things you love, trying to be a good person, being able to look in the mirror and being content with what you're looking at. You know what I mean?
I can think of a lot of things that
best
I can
advice,
buy to
John.
make me
What do you
happy.
got?
So, advice for new writers: 1, start writing. Don't think. Stop
That's a good one.
researching. Stop researching. Stop thinking about writing. Stop planning about writing and start writing. You can't be a writer if you don't write. So I don't care how bad you think it is. Just start writing. And if you can, join a writers group where you can get other writers to kind of give you feedback. I'm a part of the local writers group, and we have regular video conferences where everybody reads about 500 words, and you get feedback. If you can get feedback, trust me, it's going to help you grow tremendously as a writer very quickly, as opposed to working in a vacuum. So start writing. Don't. A lot of people, I find, they get caught up in the, I got to research it. I got to do all this. I got to
the minutia as opposed to creating the product.
And you do everything except write. So just
I've got to create my 300-page world dictionary.
Yeah.
It's gonna...
Yeah. Start writing. Once you have an idea, start fleshing it out. Right. And I know this is only good for some people, because there are people who get in. They literally have everything planned out. I know DMs like that who literally had walls full of maps. They had the entire continent, and no matter where we went, they had something there. But you don't have to do that to get started writing. Just start writing.
30 years ago, or 32 years ago, is when I started writing, but it was poetry. And before internet and all that stuff, when you would be at bars and having somehow with poems keep drunk people from throwing bottles at you. And I remember I was obviously really young buck, and there was older, kind of grumpy poets, and luckily a couple of them, even with my fumbling steps, liked what I did. And I remember the best piece of advice I got, even though at the age I didn't understand what the hell he was trying to say, but it's one of those after the fact, you go, oh, that was really wise. He said, if you want to be a writer, write a lot and read a lot.
Yep.
Now, at the time, I was pretty inebriated when he was trying to tell me that, so I was like, thanks, man. But he was actually, that simple advice is pretty much along the lines of what you just said. It's about as, I don't know if I trust writer. When I meet people that say they're a writer, but they don't like to read, my first assessment of that, without looking at their writing, is that their writing is probably not very good.
I think as a writer, you learn something from every single book you read.
Well, it's like a filmmaker saying he doesn't like watching film. I you know what I mean? Like, I don't. Yeah. That to me is like antithesis of. It's like a fashion designer who hates fashion. Like, I don't. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't seem like they can coexist and actually produce a skilled or talented person. You know what I mean?
And just to piggyback off of what you said, don't just read, but make sure you also read the genre that you want to write in, because you need to know the tropes, and there are certain expectations, certain pacing, and many times there's
agree. I've chewed up 60 or 70 lit RPGs in the last 7 months, man. So I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely read in your genre, and we read widely.
Well, you know what, you guys, it's been an amazing evening. You guys, unfortunately, we're running out of time, so we're going to save Mark's acrobatic wingtip feather tux with his lightsaber and his yellow summer dress for next episode. But we will. We roll through it. No, I kid Mark a lot, but Mark is like my little brother. I love him to death, and the show couldn't happen without it. I also love his significant other, who's never actually on the camera, Alex, who keeps him in place and occasionally beats him mercilessly. But but anyway, thank you so much for my guests. Two very talented people. Please go and read their books, support them in their endeavors. And for those at home, remember, as we've been conversing about it, and we do in a lot of shows, go out and do. You want to be an artist, a painter, a musician, whatever it is you want to be. All, and this has been said by me and other people before, all great things are just a bunch of little things, little steps put together. You know what I mean? So no one goes from nothing to great thing. They gain great things by doing a bunch of little things, and after doing a bunch of those little things, they all add up to a great thing. So just focus on the little steps, man. Just like focus on the steps. Just step. You can even do like ballet steps, like Mark, who is a master ballet dancer, and make it pretty. Or you can do tripping, falling steps and eat it in your face and still get it going. However you want to get there, man. 1,000 roads to Damascus. But anyway, the special thanks to my guests. Beautiful blessings to you that are watching. You've been watching Stormcrow Dreamers Talking to Dreamers. Big love. Have a beautiful road, and we'll talk to you again next month.
Take care.
Take care.